Thank you very much, Hamal, and indeed thank you, Brian, for hosting us. Um, it's a great book, People Care and Work in the Home. There's my copy. One of its many good features is that it has a few blank pages at the back, which I've now filled out with my with my later thoughts on the theme that was chosen for me. My bit is just a small part of the whole, but it relates to the home for those in later life. A home for later life was my chapter. And I've been thinking about what has changed since we put it together. Time has passed. And indeed, my CV has changed quite a bit since then. Things have moved on. But of course, they moved on most significantly in respect of the dreaded ghastly COVID pandemic. And I want to just spend some time in thinking through the changes that COVID has made to the kind of case I was setting out in support of there being more attention given to the home for older people. I was already saying just how significant the home was for those in later life. They're going to spend nearly all of their life, the rest of their life, in that particular place, in that home. The home has to matter incredibly to those people. But hasn't COVID brought this home to us? Hasn't this emphasized and underlined just how important it is to have a home where you can flourish and thrive and not suffer in the ways that the home can make us suffer in so many respects. I'm going to look at the COVID impact on our thinking about the home and possibly the legacy that it will leave afterwards as we consider the homes for everybody in their later life. Well, the first thing, of course, is space. And although we think of space and the confines of being in a poky, small, indeed even one-room apartment, we think of the consequences for families, for trying to bring up children, for homeschooling in cramped and overcrowded conditions. And we think how ghastly that must be. And those of us who have a home with space around us just know how lucky we are and how different our lives are to those of families cooped up in tiny space. Indeed, I was just hearing how in a block of flats where so many of the families are off the ground, they're not even at ground level, are not getting out and about. Even the lift is a problem, because who do you share the lift with? Have you put your mask on? Have you touched the buttons on the lift in your tower block? Everything about the place is not designed to make us safe and secure at a time of a pandemic. But space within the home is so critical. Space in which to work for some, to educate your children for others, a second bedroom if you're an older person, so a carer can stay overnight rather than paying a fleeting visit, dressed possibly in full PPE to come and provide care for you in your home. A second bedroom allowing a daughter, a sister, a relation, an informal carer to stay there rather than a bed sit or a single bedroom apartment. Space turns out to be so important, even if you're a couple. And how much better it's been to be a couple in these COVID days than to be entirely on your own. But even if you're in a couple, that second bedroom is incredibly important so that you're not on top of each other 24/7. The extra cost of a spare room is a really important investment for us, providing social housing, for us acquiring our own accommodation in later life. 2 bedrooms. Extra space for older people's housing. But space outside of the flat, the apartment, the bungalow, space outside is incredibly important as well. And in London, we now insist on there being balconies. Everybody needs a balcony. You may think a small apartment, why would you need a balcony? My goodness, COVID has taught us. You need a balcony, you need some space. Just get out into the fresh air for a bit. possibly see your neighbor at a good social distance, balcony to balcony, but there must be an opportunity to get out. A lot of older people are not going out for an hour to take exercise, go for a run. They are going to stay inside. That balcony is all important. And indeed, wherever possible, a bit of garden to get into and to walk around in, around the place where you're living. How we treasure the garden now. And I wonder whether one of the long-term consequences is that people will be more reluctant to downsize, to, as I say in my piece, to right size, to move in older age to somewhere that's more manageable, more economic, more warm, energy efficient, in every way more suitable and more accessible, but without possibly the spare space, without the garden. Will people find right sizing less attractive in the future? Will we see less of a market for the private sector in providing apartments that are specifically tailor-made for those in retirement? Will more people want to stay where they are, having experienced the value of having a bit of extra space about them, even if it's at a cost? I think that there could be a greater emphasis on home adaptations, of trying to make the place where you are more suitable for you, and a bit less of an influence of a trend toward moving on to somewhere that we have advocated as being the right size for you, but maybe a bit more compressed. Well, who knows? I think the counter argument is that connectivity, being part of a social group, having potential companions and colleagues around you, which you get in a retirement development, flats that are for older people, are age exclusive, as we say, to move to a place where you're not entirely on your own, where there's somebody who can come and provide just that bit of help when you need it, where you don't have problems with the maintenance of your property, which can be really difficult to organize, not just during a pandemic, but generally in older age, somewhere where somebody else takes the strain. Maybe some of those ingredients will mean that the thought of moving on, moving to somewhere more suited in terms of accessibility, no stairs, a walk-in shower in the bathroom, in many ways a much more suitable home. Maybe it will be the social aspects rather than the physical aspects in the end that count. And being in a community of older people may be something that we do treasure, having been on our own as single older people, and possibly facing loneliness and the isolation of that. Those who bought that lovely cottage in the village, in the countryside, that was fine when they could get in the car and go and visit their friends and relations, go shopping and do the rest. But when they're housebound, and when COVID just shows us what it's like to be there, stuck indoors, stuck in the place all the time, without company, without people around, maybe we will treasure the idea a bit more of moving somewhere where there is companionship laid on. I remember when I was at the Joseph Rowntree Foundation, we created a retirement community to the north of York. It's for about 200 older people, with bungalows around a central care centre and a cafe and restaurant. It's a super community, very long waiting list, I'm afraid I have to tell you, if you're thinking of living in York. But I went to an open day for new residents not so long ago, and it reminded me of Freshers' Week at university. There were all the people with their stalls, all the societies that you could join, the National Trust outings, the painting club, the woodworking club, there was so much that you could do. This was a community, and you weren't going to be lonely. You weren't going to be on your own. Maybe will appreciate more the value of being in a place where there is built-in a social connectivity of that kind. Well, the other thing I think we've learned during COVID is how important this blooming technology is. Those of us who have been rather reluctant to adopt IT to here we all are on Zoom, an amazing thing. I was on a Zoom call yesterday and there were 478 people on the call. How could we imagine bringing everybody together in that way? And at the individual level, at the level of the home, the opportunity to talk to our relations and friends through the miracles of technology on FaceTime, never mind Zoom, on Skype, talking to our friends and family. This has become so important to us. What would we have done, some of us, without that kind of connectivity from our home, from our otherwise potential isolation? My family have a Sunday morning Zoom, and I've got family in Melbourne, Tokyo, London, and Yorkshire. And we all meet on Sunday mornings and talk to each other and share and catch up on grandchildren and the rest. What a miracle. And we have been forced to learn and adopt this technology and understand it and spread it to our colleagues who have been even more reluctant than ourselves. And this has made, this I think has probably speeded up by 5 or 10 years, a process that was there. Well, my theme of the home being key to happiness, well-being, health in later life, to being the place where you don't want accidents, you don't want to be stuck in hospital, unable to be discharged home because the home is so unsuitable. You don't want cold and damp conditions of the kind that Sir Michael Marmot has drawn our attention to, leading to those premature winter deaths. COVID has underlined all of the reasons why a decent home is so important in later life. Indeed, even if you've had COVID, even if you're not likely to catch COVID again, it can leave you with respiratory problems, which a damp or cold home is going to make totally unsuitable as this winter continues. We do need more new homes for older people. We need those who are in owner-occupied property, which now is become dilapidated, or which simply needs to be more, to be smaller and more manageable for us in our older age. As tenants in the private rented sector, we need to move to somewhere very often that is more secure, that is properly suited to our needs. And we can't get the private rented property to be adapted just for us. And indeed, we can find the rents rising in the private sector after we've retired and we no longer have the same income as we did when we were working. We can find those rents too high for us, and we're going to need social rented housing. We've got to be building everywhere. As part of the drive to end the acute housing shortages that afflict this country, we've got to include accommodation that is tailor-made, perfectly suited for older people who can't stay where they are and for whom something more suitable can be created. We need the planners to recognize and understand that. We need central government to be supporting those moves, to be supporting the housing associations and councils that are building to meet those needs, because, and COVID has underlined this, the home is so fundamental to our future well-being, health and happiness in older age. And I commend the book for its many ingredients, and hope those of you who get it will have a look too at the bit that concerns older people in and their housing in later life. Thank you very much, Amal. Thank you very much, Brian.